Welcome into Hitting Hard on a day before the draft, Wednesday. Holy cow, draft is tomorrow. But today on the show, we are going to talk about the Hawks and that, lackluster kind of ending to their season last night, and a little bit of a look ahead to what's going to happen in the offseason. And we'll talk a little bit more. We'll preview and get you ready for Falcons draft coming up tomorrow night. It is Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on this Wednesday before the NFL draft. We thank you for being a part of the show. We want you to head over to our YouTube channel. Put in the little browser box, put in Locked On Sports Atlanta, find us, hit that subscribe button, be a part of our ever-growing community. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the show. We always appreciate that. And, of course, you can follow me on my Twitter page at JMCH316. Well, the Hawks season is over, and it just kind of went out with just kind of a whimper. Look, last night the Hawks go into that game, obviously in must-win. We got word earlier before the game about Jimmy Butler was not going to play. To give you an idea about how good Butler has been in this series, he was averaging 30.5 points per game in the series. The next closest Miami Heat player was averaging 14. So he was doubling anybody else on their roster as far as scoring goes, and really his importance to what this Miami Heat team was out there. So we knew no Kyle Lowry. We knew no Jimmy Butler. On the Hawks side of things, it was no Bogey. Bogdanovich was going to be out. So both teams playing a little bit shorthanded, but certainly you kind of thought advantage Hawks in that game last night. And there were so many little microcosms of what went wrong this season for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, let me give you examples, okay? For instance, Kevin Huerter comes out and he scores 7 points in the first half of the first quarter, okay? So the first, 6-7 minutes of the first quarter, he comes out and scores 7 points. The entire rest of the game, 3.5 quarters, he scored 5 more points in that game. He finished with 12. Now, how is he not a part of the offense when he gets things cranked up and going? Well, he scores 7 points early on, and I hate to say it this way, and people are going to get frustrated because I have this kind of reoccurring theme at times. Trey comes down and takes a couple of bad shots, and they get out of their offensive flow. And he never really got back in the flow of that game. He scored late, hit a basket late, but he had 7 points in the first 6 or 7 minutes in that game and only scored 5 more points the rest of that game. Then take Clint Capella, who played the first half, re-injured that knee, and was out. He did what he needed to do for this team while he was in. Don't care about his scoring, but his 8 rebounds is what helped. He comes out of the game, and this team just can't find a way to have enough inside presence. Adebayo got things going. Tucker got things going. They were able, Miami, to get their inside presence going last night. Adebayo had 20 points and 11 boards last night in that game. Tucker didn't play all that well, but still was a factor in it. Martin was another factor in that game last night with, in 21 minutes, 10 points in 4 rebounds. It just took some of the momentum from your inside presence. I don't know if John Collins is hurt. I don't know if he was just whatever, but he was 26 minutes with 7 points and 2 boards. He was a complete non-factor. It seems like as this series went along, his productivity from a minute standpoint dropped like a lead weight. Hell, his best performance was the first game he came back and played where he had 13 points and 10 rebounds. The rest of the series, he just disappeared. And my frustration with John Collins gets to be, I was talking about this last night on my show. This is his 5th year in the league now. He averages less than 60 games a year. He's played 293 regular season games in 5 years in the NBA. That's less than 60 games a year. And I don't want to hear about COVID and all that. He's either suspended or he's hurt or can't play or this and that. How can you count on a guy that's a 60-game player who that even when he plays, one night might be 20 and 15. The next night might be 7 points and 4 rebounds. It's maddening. It's maddening to watch all of this go on. And last night, I thought DeAndre Hunter was fantastic. He's the guy that kept them in that game. But as they got toward the end of that game at times, Trey fires up some crazy shots, gets them out of their offensive flow. I would love to see a stat in this series about points off of turnovers. We talk about this in the NFL all the time. You make turnovers in the NFL, teams will capitalize on it. I would love to see a stat on how many points the Miami Heat scored off of turnovers, because it seemed like every time the Heat or Hawks turned the ball over, they come down and hit a big shot. Now, the other thing as well is where that game completely changed was toward the end of the first half, and the Hawks had back-to-back inbounds plays where what they do, turn it over. First one leads to an easy basket. Second one leads to a three. And all of a sudden, you were within 3-4 points. And all of a sudden, you look up and they make a run at the end of the first half, and you got down by 14, and I think it was 10 or what have you at the half. Just mysterious. That changed the whole game around. We talk about in the NFL game of inches. The NBA is like that too. All sports are like that in professional sports. Again, the Miami Heat didn't out-talent the Hawks. The Hawks weren't, overachievers and found a way to get in the playoffs, and they just don't have any players or talent or anything like that. The Miami Heat did not talent them, and especially with no Lowry and no Jimmy Butler on the floor. They started Oladipo. He had a big night last night. He was 23 points and 23 points of one rebound and 3 assists and 3 steals last night for them. But it wasn't like they out-talented the Hawks. It wasn't a situation where the Heat just had too many stars for the Hawks to match up with. They just couldn't match the intensity. They couldn't play good enough defense, and they kept turning the ball over and made them make these turnovers, and they just led to easy baskets for the Miami Heat. And it was a microcosm of all of the things that went on for this season. Now, we're going to talk more about Trae Young and sort of where we're at with all this in the next segment, because again, he was awful in this series. And you can like this or not like this, it doesn't really matter. But the reason why the Brooklyn Nets and the Atlanta Hawks got knocked out early on, and they were the first 2 teams that get eliminated from their series, is because their stars didn't play like stars. Trae Young didn't play like a star, and Kevin Durant didn't play like a star. And those 2 teams found themselves exited out very quickly. In the postseason, your stars have to be stars. That's not all on Trae, but that's a lot on Trae. And if you can't score, you can't get to the basket, you better figure out some other things to help your team win. You better figure out how to still be a star on that team. And that didn't happen. So we come back, we're going to talk about Nate McMillan. We're going to talk about Trae Young, kind of where we're at, where we're headed with all of this stuff, off-season thoughts. More Hawks talk when we get back. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.